Well, hello there. It's great to see you again, and welcome back to Optimizing Your Financial World. I am your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and as always, we've got Mr. Mark Wade, president of Echelon Family Office, standing by. He'll be joining me in just a moment. We're going to be unpacking another wealth management related discussion. That's what we do here on the show. And today we've got a really unique topic that we're going to be talking about. And to frame things up, I want you guys to think about this. The bad financial decisions that we avoid in our lives can be just as beneficial as some of the good financial moves that maybe we make. And while no one really is perfect out there in this financial world, one thing that is certain is that highly successful people and families and business owners, well, they're tend to, they're avoiding those major slip ups that can set them back. So today, Mark and I are going to be unpacking some really wealth destroying mistakes that highly successful people aren't making, and how we can take a page out of that playbook and really begin to implement some of those strategies, those solutions, and avoid some of these mistakes in the first place. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring Mark out here and get right into it. Mark, it's good to see you today. How you doing?
Hey, Ryan, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. Mark, we got a good topic lined up today. We're talking about these mistakes that the super rich, the ultra affluent aren't really making in their day to day. Mark, let's start high level here. Do you find that highly successful people and families are adept not just at making the smart financial plays, but at avoiding those mistakes that could be damaging to their net worth overall?
Hey, Ryan, when we were talking about this topic just the other day, I really liked that intro you just did because oftentimes we're talking about the things that we should be doing, right? How about, and I don't think we really ever talk about the mistakes that we should be trying to avoid. So this is a great topic. And to answer your question is absolutely, we see a pattern, over 40 years, this is what, our 44th year of doing this now, over 40 years, we've seen patterns which, the self-made rich as a group, we like to define them, or I should say the industry defines them with a net worth of about 500 million or more, right? We see that, as a group, these people who are also, by the way, are predominantly business owners, these extremely wealthy individuals, they aren't immune to making mistakes, but they do a good job of avoiding a lot of the mistakes that anybody can trip up and fall over, and we find that, they do tend to avoid some crucial errors that could really have a negative impact on their bottom lines, both now and in the financial futures of their family.
Sure, sure. And Mark, you mentioned 500 million or more in net worth. I mean, boy, is that quite a number. So if I'm nowhere near that level of wealth, what can we take away from this group as a whole?
Well, that's interesting. You should ask that question, actually, in that manner. Many of the mistakes that the super rich tend to be so good at avoiding are the same kind of mistakes that can trip up just about any family or any investor at any level of wealth. So, the super rich, they do leave us lessons that all of us can learn from. Sidestepping these errors consistently can really make a huge difference, to your bottom line and result in a lot of winning moves that families can make, on behalf of their family now and also in the future. You can potentially help yourself and your bottom line by learning what the super rich don't do with their wealth and the mistakes that they avoid.
Alrighty, so let's start plucking some of these pages out of the super rich playbook. Then, Mark, what is the first big mistake that you see that people should be on the lookout for?
Okay, well, and this sounds kind of simple, and it sounds like, oh, why didn't I think of that? One of the biggest things is losing sight of their goals. The super rich always tend to put a lot of time into developing and spelling out in detail what their goals are, and what their deeper beliefs about wealth and their family values are, okay, and how those things should be coordinated together. For example, maybe many of them actually, and we recommend it in many cases, that a family should have a vision statement about, what their optimal outcomes are and the reasons for those outcomes. And those reasons could be, practical things or psychological things, the reasons why they want certain outcomes to occur. Then they create a mission statement, and that mission statement really is, the plan with all the steps they're going to take to realize, what those ultimate outcomes are. And then from there, all decisions that they're going to make about wealth, they make them only after they consider what their vision, values, and the action plan to reach those, the results that are guided by those visions and values, right? So, by having that system in place, they never lose sight of what their key goals are and those other factors that underline those key goals, the reason why those are important goals to the family. The super rich, they do a great job of not chasing, the hot dot, the hot investments of the day, or the shiny objects or opportunities that really are not going to amount to anything in the long run. They do a good job of avoiding those things.
That's a really interesting first one, Mark. That idea of not losing sight of goals. You mentioned it being so almost simple in nature to think about, but so what's the lesson here? What's the takeaway for our audience?
Yeah, back to that vision statement and the plans, which are how we're going to act on that vision statement, right? They're very clear about what they want to accomplish. And so individuals have to do the same thing. They have to be crystal clear of what the goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. Okay. Yeah. It's really important to be flexible along the way because things happen while life is going on, right? Life's what happens while we're busy making plans sometimes, and so any decision that they may make to adjust or make large shifts in the strategy, they have to be deliberate and they have to be carefully considered. And how critical are they to the situation? So, likewise, decisions. You shouldn't make decisions. When you have a lack of guidelines, right? I mean, you need to make sure that smart decisions, you're going to make these smart decisions. And like I said, you're not just chasing the new shiny or new investment product of the day that at the end of the day might not really have anything to do with your long-term financial goals and more, and equally as important, your family values and philosophy. You want to try to avoid those things as best as possible.
All right, there you have it. First big mistake. Mark, take us into the next one. What do you see on this front?
Hey, Ryan, another big mistake that they're expert at avoiding is, they steer clear of professionals, who really aren't up to the task of delivering a specific value to them that they're in need of, right? They realize that while most advisors out there really want to do a great job for their clients, and I believe that's true. I do believe that most advisors want to do a great job for their clients. Some of them simply don't possess the capabilities or the resources to make certain things happen. And so the super rich are really careful at seeking out, what let's call them consummate professionals.
Okay, so when we're talking about that idea, all right, consummate professionals there, Mark, what would you say should give somebody the confidence that they are working with a true wealth manager, a true consummate professional?
Huh, yeah, I walked right into that one, didn't I? Let's see. For starters, the super rich, they're going to gravitate towards leading authorities, right? They're going to work with recognized experts such as industry thought leaders and people who come, highly recommended. So, they rely heavily on referrals, when they seek out their financial advisors and other professionals that they're going to work with. The most going to say consistently, and that's a key word, the most consistently effective method to get referrals from high quality or to and from high quality professionals, by the way, uh that they're currently engaging. It's the best way to do it, to get those recommendations from people they're already working with, and because they're going to know who the other great professionals are. So that's number one. And generally, high quality professionals tend to know other kind of consummate professionals, guys who are authorities, people who are thought leaders in their field. An example might be a top money manager who knows, elite wealth planners like myself, and leading insurance specialists who are both skilled and have, tremendous integrity, because that's extremely important. Finally, I'm going to say, well, maybe not finally, but certainly, I'm going to say that they're willing to pay well for their quality. The super rich, they make a concerted effort to minimize costs, as we all do, but they're not going to forego the desired results that they're trying to achieve simply because pursuing those results might require them to spend more money. I mean, the super rich, they understand it's important to assess a provider not only on his or her stated fee, but also on the person's ability to deliver value, right? And there's a real important word. Let me just let me just explode that a little bit. When we say value, we mean the super rich are willing to pay for professional advice from experts who can deliver true and meaningful value to the bottom line for them and their family. What am I going to receive in return for that value? People are willing to pay for that. So, the lesson here is, I would say, by turning to leading authorities, the thought leaders, and soliciting referrals from high caliber professionals that you already work with, know, and trust, you can probably greatly increase your chances of working with, the truly skilled professionals, the ones that you need. Those people, you know, when one has both the willingness and the ability to get you where you want to go in ways that won't jeopardize your future, those are the people you want to work with, and you should be willing to pay for.
Sure thing, sure thing. So working with those true consummate professionals, heeding their advice, getting the referrals to go through that process. Okay, that's a mistake that they're not making. The super rich. Let's move into the third one here, Mark. What do you see in regard to the third big mistake here?
Yeah, well, that question leads me back to Ronald Reagan all the time, right? Ronald Reagan says, trust and verify when he was speaking with regard to the Soviet Union. Trust but verify. So I'm going to say, that the next thing you really need to look at is, in the beginning, failing to get a second opinion. Oftentimes things that are really complicated and are have diverse different specialties needed to bring to fruition, you need to get second opinions in advance and along the way. Once you've implemented plans or plans that you've implemented years ago, it's time to get stress tests. The super rich, they take that message to heart all the time. They're aware that, even the top professionals, that they tend to hire can make mistakes. Everybody can make a mistake. You just want them to be small mistakes and happen infrequently. So they know that, changes in their lives and the world at large. And let's face it, think about it. The economy, politics, global environment. These are all things. And then even changes in your own family environment, your family ecosystem. These changes, can have an impact on how a solution that you put in place a while ago will behave today. So the super rich rely on these second opinions and stress testing to help give them the confidence they need to stay on the path of where they want to go, right? Or the path that they should be on to achieve where they want to go to. It's really important.
Yeah, yeah. Mark, I know you and we've had a lot of conversations on this show about stress testing, about second opinions. If this is a new concept for anybody that's with us today, would you mind just kind of highlighting for us kind of the key differences between, second opinions and stress tests? When would somebody use one versus the other?
Thanks for bringing that up, because I know I touched on it a bit in the last question. Let's expand upon that a bit. All right. Ideally, a second opinion occurs before any action is taken. So let's say, for example, you're considering a particular tax mitigation strategy that maybe someone has, suggested to you. You might get a second opinion from another noted leading tax authority, just to be certain that that strategy is valid and viable in your situation. Second opinions are commonly thought of, and again, so if that's the a second opinion is, again, in the beginning. So second opinions are commonly thought of whenever there's any question or any sense of uncertainty. But really, they can be done at any time. For example, many investors, both the super rich and others, obtain second opinions about their overall financial strategy if they're worried that they might not be on the right track, or the professionals they've enlisted maybe are not up to snuff anymore. It may have been great when you put that plan in place. He may have been current and very competent at the time, but times are changing. As we talked about, there are so many things happening in the world and in the individual's family. So that's second opinion. Stress testing, on the other hand, or in contrast, let's say, it's typically done when you want to evaluate an existing strategy that you already have in place. This is a check, to see, whether what you implemented in the past remains, or or maybe is likely to remain moving forward, both viable and valid. Basically, you're checking the things that are working or you're checking to make sure things continue to work as they were originally predicted and will continue to work so in the future. So for a lot of reasons, the rich take stress testing, like they do an annual medical checkup. Uh, you know, they may there may be nothing wrong at the time, but it isn't going to stop them from going out and getting a checkup just to make sure there's something that they're not seeing or something that they've missed. So ultimately, no matter what your level of wealth, getting a second opinion when you're unsure or uncomfortable about a strategy or an idea or a product, is usually worthwhile. And similarly, periodically stress testing your overall wealth plan. All the financial planning and all the various subspecialties underneath retirement planning, investment planning, insurance, all that stuff. Getting a stress test on all of that stuff or any specific aspect of it, can enable you to avoid, problems, now or down the road. I guess what I'm trying to say is, a comprehensive review of where you are today and where you want to be, and any of the gaps that may exist between where you are and where you want to get to, is probably valuable because they may indicate that everything is perfectly and everything is right in its place, but might also reveal some issues that you need to address. It makes sense to catch them sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And that's a common theme on this show. Get ahead of it, right? We talk about that a lot, Mark. And, Mark, we've highlighted a few big mistakes, right? That the super rich are just not making on a regular basis. And a lot of good value in here for our audience today. So, for our audience members, let's say some of them out there are scratching their heads maybe a little bit and thinking, oh, maybe I should be looking into that second opinion or stress test, or maybe I shouldn't be losing sight of my goals. Maybe they are making some of these mistakes that's holding their wealth plan and themselves back. What would be the best way they could get in touch with you and your team, Mark, to maybe just open up a dialogue and see how they can maybe curb that mistake that they might be making?
Sure, they could they could go visit us on the web at www.echelonoffice.com. That's Echelon, the word office.com. Or they could contact me directly. They could email me at mwade, that's MWADE, at echelonwealth.com, Echelon, the word wealth.com, or they can just call in. I mean, I'd be more than happy to talk to them. And that's 888-892-9882.
Alrighty, fantastic. Well, hey, Mark, look, I appreciate you carving some time out of your day to be with us here on the show. I know you've got clients to serve, so we'll let you get back to doing that. But looking forward to jumping back on here, to cover the next show.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. This was a great conversation today. We took much of what we do, and we looked at the opposite side of it. It's great. These are the mistakes not to avoid. Great job.
Alrighty. Well, hey, look, we also want to say a final thank you to the audience for staying aboard and being with us here on the show today. Again, if you took anything away from today's conversation and you benefited from any of these mistakes that Mark mentioned today, do us a favor, go ahead and subscribe to the show on whichever platform you checked us out on today. And then, of course, share this information with any friends, family, business owners, anybody that you think would benefit from these types of conversations. I've said it once before, I'll continue to say it. We are taking the strategies, we're taking the solutions, and even just the simple conversations that Mark is having with his clients routinely over at Echelon Family Office, and we're bringing them right here to you guys on this show. So by subscribing, you'll make sure that you never miss out on a future conversation that could add value maybe to your bottom line. So for Mark, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long today, but we appreciate you guys stopping by and being with us here on today's installment of Optimizing Your Financial World.